Well, welcome everyone. Today we are talking about paying for college, specifically how to make sense of the offer letters that I know many of you are receiving right now and probably feeling very overwhelmed by. You're in that decision mode and hopefully not decision paralysis, and you are not alone. This is a fast and very noisy time of year, and we are here to help slow things down and help you really interpret what's in front of you and make choices that make sense for you. So before we dive in, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Allie Danziger. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Ascent Funding. At Ascent, we believe deeply in helping students and families get the resources that you need to help you plan, pay for, and succeed during and after your education, and especially on the financial side where things can feel very confusing. My goal today in this webinar is very simple. I want to help you understand your options, avoid common mistakes or misunderstandings, and just help you feel more confident as you think about this big decision. So first, let's talk about why this even matters. So one, today is April 21st. I had to think about that for a second. And this is when most people have to decide before your May 1st decision day. And oftentimes you're making these decisions without complete clarity. Your offer letters arrive and they can vary from school to school, oftentimes looking very different. In this presentation today, I'll be using screenshots and examples of different ways that these offer letters can be formatted just to help you recognize that you are not alone in trying to decipher what each different school is trying to communicate. And sometimes what can feel and look like better aid can be a mix of loans and grants and work study, and it can be really confusing and misunderstanding of what the school is actually offering you and what you are still required to pay. And just keep in mind that clarity now leads to better decisions later, especially when you're trying to understand what's free, what must be repaid, and what your family is truly responsible for. So while it feels overwhelming, understanding that slowing down a little bit as you're making these key decisions will really pay off later. So the way that we'll organize content this evening is first, we'll just talk about how financial aid offers are put together and why they can look and feel so different from school to school. We'll talk through what is free versus what you have to pay back, and then what you're actually being asked to pay. So how to use those numbers to really understand what is the true cost of admissions and a little understanding of how schools determine that. We'll look at various versions of offer letters so that you can apply this framework to how you're thinking about what you have to pay for. And then we'll give you a framework of some good questions to ask your schools and the financial aid officers that are there to support you. So first, an offer letter is helpful, but it is not always the full story. So I want to just highlight what it shows and what it doesn't always show. So it certainly shows what the school estimates that college will cost for 1 year. There's a breakdown of the mix of grants, loans, and work study that's being offered. And keep in mind, this is often a picture for 1 year only. But what this letter does not often show is what your family will actually pay month to month. It does not clearly separate free money from money that must be repaid, and it usually only shows year one. So keep in mind that school is more than 1 year, and so your job and our job tonight is to interpret what this letter actually means for you, not just read it, but make sure that you deeply understand it. So here's the simplest framework to really think about with any financial aid offer letter. So that's the cost of attendance. You've got your full cost of attendance, which is what the school has estimated as the annual cost. Then you subtract free money, which is grants and scholarships that does not require repayment. And then that's what your family actually has to pay, finance, or earn in order to pay. So let's categorize what you're actually seeing when you are looking at this aid offer. You've got your cost of attendance up top, which we'll dive into here in a second. You have the money that you don't pay back. So those are grants from the school or the government, scholarships, and then keep in mind that this oftentimes may come with various requirements. You've got your money you do pay back, which is your federal student loans, and then other parent borrowing. And then money that you have to earn, which is where work study will oftentimes fall. And keep in mind that there is a difference in work between work study and just working in your on campus. So we'll break all of this down just a little bit. So cost of attendance. This is the cost that schools will say is how much it's going to cost to go to the school. This is not your actual tuition number, but this is the school's estimate of what typical students might spend in a year. So they do this with broad assumptions. So it's not necessarily a guarantee, which is something that you really want to keep in mind. It varies from student to student based off of if you live on or off campus, how much you're going to spend on meals. Are you going to be eating on campus or door dashing many of those meals? As we sometimes see, what does transportation look like? How far away is the school from your home? And do you expect to be visiting and traveling more often? And then books and personal expenses is one that really people forget about. You've got books and technology that are necessary in order to actually attend and succeed in the school. So it's important to think through how, one, the school is thinking about this, and also how you can save money and maybe borrow for some of this, have scholarships applied to some of this, but know that some of this is not necessarily predictable, and it's where your real life will come into play. Next, when we're talking about what the school is actually offering you, it's important to not get tripped up here and think about when someone says, like, I'm choosing this school because they gave us more money, there's sometimes a catch or a difference of where more aid might just be more loans from the federal government versus actual grants that the school is providing that does not have to be paid back. So to make this really easy to understand, I like this example because it shows an apples to apples comparison. If you think about these two schools and these two offers, both say $30,000, right? They look identical at first glance if you're just looking at the total, but when you break them apart, you can see something very different. One offer is doing more of the work with grants, offer B, and one it is doing less grants and more loans. So we're not saying don't choose school A here, but it's just important to keep in mind when you're comparing the offers. And here's what this might actually look like on an offer letter. And as you can see, once you break them apart, these two offer letters are doing very different things. One offer letter lowers the price of the actual price of college with more money that you don't have to repay, where the other relies more on loans to get you that same 30,000 headline number. So again, totally fine to choose either school that works best for you, but it really is important to go into that with full open eyes and understanding of what this means for you. And then if your offer letter did not look like that and does not have the loan section in it and you think it should, don't worry, but it possibly means that you did not fill out the FAFSA. You are not too late, so again, no need to worry, but the FAFSA won't actually show up as a line item on your offer letter. That the FAFSA is the input that the school is used to determine eligibility for financial aid on a federal basis. So if you filed for your FAFSA and you don't see that on your offer letter, then you can contact your school and try to figure out why the federal aid or work study would not be showing up. But if you didn't file the FAFSA and still need to, again, you're not too late, and the processing step is usually quick. For online submissions, it's usually 1 to 3 days, but what can sometimes take a little bit longer is on the school side for them to actually process that. That can sometimes be a couple of weeks. And then they will come back to you with an updated offer letter, and you can reach out to your financial aid office and ask for questions and updates on status. They might just tell you to keep checking back in, but it is important to fill out that FAFSA in a timely manner. Also, late FAFSA does not close the door, but some states and school aid might be limited. And so it can be, if you're in your junior year right now, get that FAFSA in as quickly as possible because aid might be limited, and then they offer based on priority based off of those deadlines. So as I alluded to before, it's really important to keep in mind that most financial aid offers, are built for just one academic year. As we know, school is more than 1 year. And so when you're thinking about the cost estimates, it's really important to think beyond what is just on that initial offer letter and how it is impacted for the remainder of your education. FAFSA is tied to a single year, so you do have to fill out that FAFSA every year, and your eligibility and that offer can change year to year for a couple of reasons. One, scholarships and grants can have different renewal rules. You might have to have a certain GPA, a certain number of hours enrollment, and if those conditions aren't met, then the aid might change. If you drop below that full time, some aid would be adjusted. The cost of attendance at a school can change. Institutional aid might change year to year, and that just is something that you can talk to the financial aid office about. And your financial picture can change. You can change jobs. You can come into a large amount of money. There can be changes in your savings account. So as your personal situation changes, understand that aid can change as well. So hopefully in just a couple of minutes here, you've been able to really understand the concepts of how an offer letter will look. And my recommendation is to very simply just mark up your offer letter. You don't need a calculator or fancy spreadsheet or anything to start, just a pen and a highlighter. So first start by highlighting the money that you don't have to pay back, those grants and scholarships. Circle in a different color anything that has to be repaid, and then circle in a different color anything that has to be earned, or star the work study, excuse me. So once you do that, it's so much easier to actually break out and understand what is actually lowering the price, what is debt, and what you have to earn in order to receive. And it is very common for aid to not cover the full cost. On that example that I showed before with the 30,000 example, yes, we had the full package covered there. But if you do not see everything adding up, that does not mean you misunderstood the offer. It just means that college is really expensive. So there are other ways to cover those remaining costs. One is free money that you might have from scholarships or money that you come into, money that you already have, like savings or help from family, money that you earn by paying monthly through either earnings or family income. And then, of course, there are private student loans that you can pay while in school or later. Loans are not included in the offer letter from school, but they are one of the ways that families oftentimes choose to spread the remaining costs out over time, especially when savings or payment plans are not sufficient or available. I'm not saying that you should use private student loans. It's just about knowing that they exist and knowing your options so that you're not surprised later when this comes up as part of the conversation. And knowing your numbers and knowing what options are available to you really are the best ways to set yourself up for success. So we get along so well with our financial aid offices at all of our schools, and they are so helpful in helping students really understand how to pay for college and what those true costs are. And they're there to help you, and they expect to hear from families this time of year. So please reach out to them. Some common questions is this grant renewable and under what conditions? Another might be, will this scholarship or grant amount change after year one? As we talked about, school is more than 1 year, and sometimes your offer letter might just be for that first year. So it's important to really understand what that looks like in future academic years. What is the cost of attendance figure actually based on? How do they break down tuition, housing, meals, books, technology, etc.? And that helps you understand what you can actually control. And always helps to ask if there's flexibility in the package. Express your interest in attending the school and see what the process is for requesting a review. Especially if you didn't fill out the FAFSA and you know that something is still changing or coming, it's important to let them know and ask for what type of flexibility might be available. So hopefully you can now read your offer letter clearly. you've done the hard part. You got into the school, you've gotten the offer letter, and now it's really just about adding up those dollars, understanding your gap, asking the questions, and knowing your options. So we offer at Ascent so many scholarships to help students and families pay for school. There's a QR code here that is constantly updated with more scholarships. We have many live today, so I encourage you to click on that QR code on the right here. And then we have tons of resources and calculators, also just continuing our commitment to help students and families plan for, pay, and succeed in school. So I encourage you to please take advantage of those resources. And being here tonight is exactly the type of way that we love to support students and families like yours. Happy to answer any questions that anyone might have and address anything that popped up in the chat. Doesn't look like we've gotten anything yet. So we'll give it just a minute here. I know that for some people it might be pretty late in the evening, so really appreciate you guys joining us today. We will continue to have a series of webinars and podcasts and resources available to students on different topics throughout the spring and summer. So I encourage you to keep checking back into both our webinars, our resources, and our scholarships. We are here to support you. And thank you all so much for being here today.